Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. Daryl Ullman speaking, and we're going to kick off this webinar in 2-3 minutes. It's okay, everybody. First of all, thank you for all of those participants that jumped on 5-10 minutes early. I do appreciate it. So I'm not going to wait a long time for participants to come on. I can see log on as I'm talking. So, couple of minutes, and we'll kick off today's Microsoft Audit and SAM engagements. Then, I think that we're ready to start. So, first of all, thank you very much for joining today's Microsoft Audit and SAM engagement webinar. Everybody can hear me. Any issues, please just drop me a quick note and try and resolve anything if I'm on my side. So, for those of you that have yet to be on one of my webinars, my name is Daryl Ullman, and I'm co-founder and Chief Consulting Officer for Asset Consulting Group. I've personally been around Microsoft licensing for almost 16 years now. Part of that time as a Microsoft executive at Microsoft, and 11 years as co-founder at it. Quite a lot of hands-on experience I'm actually putting to your usage today. Whatever you guys need. Actually, you can quick. I see that I've activated my camera, so let me switch that off. Stop that. Okay. So let's just give a really quick overview of the company for you there that have yet to work with us. Basically, we do one thing, only thing, and that's software licensing. Else, we have these in various areas such as Microsoft, Oracle, and so on, and we dedicate our business to the understanding of licensing agreements, soft licensing, compliance, and everything in between, basically procurement, analysis, software discovery, benchmarking, market intelligence. So again, we do only one thing, but one thing really well. And I think that is one of the biggest benefits, core competencies of our company, and I'm proud of it. Let's start the call today, not to hear about Emerset, but to hear from and share my experience with everyone. And one of the things that I love doing, and that sometimes it seems a bit out of character for most people, but I do sharing knowledge. I do love talking about my experience and help patients and individuals succeed if they do. So I'm going to try not to keep anything back from you today. That's just my own personal mantra. So we talk about Microsoft Audit. What is a Microsoft Audit? About the audit process, how to mitigate. I think that's really what's more interesting, and that's what's going to keep the tempo going in this conversation, is how to mitigate a good and particularly a bad audit. Size everything, and I'll open up the last 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A session. Let's start what a Microsoft audit is about. So basically, an audit is a right that Microsoft, any vendor, but talking about Microsoft, a right that any vendor has in order to verify compliance. It's simple as that. Use my software, a way to verify that you actually are using it in a way that is in line with the regulations. So right to come check up on what you're doing and how you're using my software, and potentially, Mr. Customer, are use or overusing the software, or using in a manner that I didn't agree to or didn't allow, then you have to pay me for that additional cost or fine if you are abusing my rights. That is an audit. It is something that is a daily occurrence that every single customer or organization around the globe has either gone or go through at some time in the future. It's just almost a fact of life. Now, there are various types of audits, and we'll talk about them a bit more in depth. There's audit, there's an on-site audit, there's possibly, please, Mr. Customer, here are some automated scripts. Just run them for me and send them over, and we'll do the rest. So there are different approaches, different requirements or requests from Microsoft. One, I just want you to keep in mind, and I'll repeat myself a few times throughout this presentation. Does it approach you? Looks like it's inside is an audit. So that's how beautiful the wrapper is and how nicely it's presented. It's an audit. Keep that in mind, because I think that's really critical, and I'll give you some examples from our current customers. Just give you some of the basics. So I've many times about BSA. I know BSA has been out there for so many years that sometimes I actually forget about them. All out there. It's the Microsoft. It's not. It's basically a software alliance consortium made out of some of the largest software vendors in the world, Microsoft being one of them. And it's a consortium that enforces compliance and the terms and conditions of the software vendors as part of that consortium. So they're doing the work on behalf of the software vendors. So if you get a letter from the BSA, it's almost the same as getting one from Microsoft. It's just an extension. They won't say that, but it's an extension. Now, the BSA basically has a beautiful campaign that actually ran. I don't think it's still running, but it's called Nail Your Boss. Impressive. So this is about employees that not be employees, and potentially ways that they can get as an employee after they have been maybe fired, or they needed to resign, or whatever other reason. Nail your boss. Pick up to the ANSI hotline and point under licensed or pirating a company, and then you'll have a BSA or maybe a knock on the door, and you'll have a audit coming. So there are one aspect of coming up in an audit is famous BSA, and it usually happens because somebody within the organization picked up the phone and at a non-compliant organization. And the boards are pretty active, and they still are active. So again, might not be Microsoft, but if it's through the BSA, at the end of the day, it's more or less the same. You're going to be more aggressive because it's more of a legal issue. And then from a business perspective, such as Microsoft, when they come in, and I'll talk about that as well. So another question that always comes up that I get asked really, really frequently: what audits increasing? So if you look back 3-4 years ago, where Microsoft was with audits, Microsoft wasn't really one of the biggest auditors in the playing field. Biggest auditor 3 or 4 years ago was Oracle, if I'm not mistaken. They still most aggressive, but if I'm mistaken, actually Microsoft was third or fourth 3-4 years ago. And if an audit, maybe every 5 or 6 years, there were companies that actually never went through an audit with Microsoft ever. And over the last 3 years, it has stepped up their audit practices dramatically. And what is that? Almost every organization around the globe, again, this is actually a global forum. We've got people from the US and from Europe and from Asia and from the school. Microsoft stepped up their audit practice, built a very, very strong audit team, and they basically are going through a process of auditing every single customer on their customer list in their database, 3 to 4 years. Not all audits are hard audits. We'll talk about the types of audits that are out there. One, it's Microsoft's privilege. It's part of actual agreements. I'll show you what actually appears in your enterprise agreement. So type of volume licensing, as I pointed out at the beginning, has a clause where Microsoft can basically order you at a 30-day notice. Now, volume licensing is Microsoft's biggest revenue generator, more than 50 billion. I can't recall the exact numbers from the last report a week ago, but it's a big business. Now, why are audits increasing? Because Microsoft is under pressure for revenue. Account reps are under pressure to bring in more revenue. And more importantly, is that because Microsoft is transitioning now to the cloud and is deferred revenue, chunks of revenue coming over a longer period of time and not larger upfront transactions, under pressure to bring in immediate revenue to meet analysts' expectations. So, actually, the easiest way to close that revenue gap in this transition period is increased audits. So, it's one of the biggest reasons for the increase in the number of audits that we're seeing in the marketplace. And Mike is the number one auditor with among the bigger software vendors, Oracle, IBM, so on. So definitely, they've taken a lead role in the audit and the audit enforcement market. Now, many risks out there for an audit, and you be aware of them. So it's not only about money. It's not increased spend. It's about both negative PR exposure. It's a lot about management focus. So all of a sudden, this comes up on management's agenda, and it's on your weekly calls and monthly reviews. But if you have a bad audit, it's not only about paying the gap. There could be some realization penalties as well. It can be pretty painful to go audit, especially if it's a bad audit. And I've never seen a good audit. So I've seen an audit, period. I've seen bad audits, but never good audit. So audit is an audit, even if you come out flat or with a small audit cost, the time and attention that it takes to get through the audit and the movement focus and potential negative PR, it's just sometimes it's that's higher than the cost that you're going to pay. So it's not that audits are going to go away. It's all a question of how you prepare for it. So it's an inevitable happening in organizations' life. It's how you interpret the audit when it comes in, how you deal with it, and ultimately how you walk the audit. And that's really going to determine the actual outcome and the experience you're going to have. Process. So the types of audits out there. Again, don't be mistaken. These are all different types of audits. They have different specs, different impacts, implications, but they're all audits. So the first one is basically a license review. So license review, your account can come in and be very friendly, or might not even go directly to the IT or to the CIO. Go start working with some of the DBAs or with the IT infrastructure, or maybe somebody from dev, from the dev department, and just, you know what, come, let's just, I heard you've got these servers running here. Can you just share with me the report? The sales rep will take somebody out for lunch and just ask some questions about ERP installation and what SQL servers you actually have installed there. Start like data. It's a very soft license review. It's not but it's where the rep is collecting data, cross-referencing the data that it's collecting against your entitlements, and then you'll come back with a list of gaps, present that to the CIO and say, yeah, these gaps, can you explain them to me? So that's audit. It's an unfair audit, but an audit. The data was collected, your internal staff copied with it and provided the information. SAM, software asset management, or process is not presented by Microsoft as an audit in no way. You won't find the word audit anywhere on their documents, but it is a requirement, a request to participate in SAM review. There's as I said, it's wrapped beautifully, but inside only Microsoft is asking you, requesting, not for you, to provide data regarding your deployment and usage of software and your hardware infrastructure by running Microsoft's map tool or tool available. You providing back all the data, Microsoft crunch the numbers, and then coming back with a compliance review called a ELP. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. So yes, that is definitely an audit, and whatever you provide back to Microsoft and be used against you when you start to mitigate down your licensing position. An audit is a situation where you are requested through, usually it's not a direct step approach, it's usually done by your account team to provide a signed off self-audit that's done internally by your organization and signed off by the management team. So basically, you've got full responsibility for running a self-internal audit, cross-checking of entitlements versus deployment, gap report, and getting your management to sign off on that. Again, the self-audit, they will want to the data behind it. They will sit down with your teams and get into the actual deploy data. Again, it is a audit. It's a self-audit. It's a nice way to work with the customer it's Microsoft's legal position to actually ask you to do that. But again, provide back can be used against you in order to this. An independent auditor. So this is the worst kind of audit that you want to be in. Any organizations are there? Again, it's Microsoft's right. It's usually a third-party independent auditor, one of Microsoft's partners, usually it's KPMG or PwC for the larger organizations. Come in a well-rehearsed team. You are required to run not the tool, but a proprietary tool developed either by PwC or KPMG or any other vendor. I'm just using them as an example. You need to run specific scripts through our organization, and the data is collected, analyzed, and you're provided with an auditor's outcome. Now, it is a hard audit. You are out of compliance. There are potential legal fees, auditing fees, accused fees, and so on and so on. It's fun. So that is where you don't want to be if you can avoid it. And there are ways to avoid it because Microsoft only uses independent auditors for their larger accounts or for accounts that have not participated willingly in any of the three types of audit I mentioned previously. About how an audit is actually initiated. So this isn't for every single one of the cases I reviewed. Of course, changes slightly, but this is just a good example of how it actually of the line and the process. Just to give you an understanding. So basically, Microsoft is a compliance group. These audits, or one of Microsoft or your account rep, they basically initiate the process. Then that moves the request either to an independent auditor or to the other protocols that I mentioned, self-audit or a SAM protocol. An audit letter that I'll show you an example in a minute is out the organization. Usually you get a 30-day notice, so that within days we need you to either with this data or in 30 days our auditing partner will contact you and start a procedure with you. So it really depends. You can go into different directions, but it all starts with Microsoft Compliance Group, moves to either a external auditor or to the SAM Microsoft rep, or later notice, and then the type of audit that was designated towards that specific organization is in process. So I wanted to show you where Microsoft's rights or legal rights are from, and this is something that I am never surprised after years, is that organizations don't read their audit clause in their agreement. So I can only assume that the majority, maybe not all of the organizations on the call today, are part of enterprise organizations that have a enterprise agreement or an open license, SCE agreement, and so on. Part of those agreements is a master business agreement, and part of the master service agreement in paragraph 8, there's what's called verifying compliance. And here, every organization, if they didn't negotiate this, very standard audit clause, providing Microsoft providing the customer 30 days notice for audit. In addition, one of the most important clauses of your agreement, and I really recommend you to go back after this call, just read through it, understand what your rights are or what exposure is. It doesn't only talk about verifying the process, but it talks about REM clients. So here you'll also find what happens if you are unlicensed. And what I mean by, what is it under license by? 5%, 10%, 20%. So you can see for in the standard clause, unlicensed use or distribution is 5% or more. So 5% is really the threshold, meaning that almost any organization out there, even if you've got really an incredible SAM program in place, is going to be under licensed. And what does it mean? It means that particularly if you're under license, then you're going to reimburse Microsoft for all the costs of the audit. And not that, you're paying additional license fees at 125% of price, a base price. Again, and a very high penalty for those additional licenses. So it's about you paying your standard agreement list price, negotiated prices. You've got set terms and conditions for this. What I want you to take out of this session, again, depending on your ability to negotiate, your bridge, your sub-organization, is that there are certain parts of this client's that are negotiable. To be aware that 30 days can be negotiated, 5% can be negotiated, list price can be negotiated. These are for negotiation, again, depending on your ability and your size of organization. But this is where Microsoft is going to go to when they find a compliance gap. Keep this in mind. This is really, really important for enterprise organizations. So possible, I can see that there are some questions coming in. I'll take those questions at the end of the webinar. Okay, let's continue. So one of that I keep hearing from companies when they get this letter and this notification is, what is Microsoft out to get me? Why cooperate with Microsoft? Well, Microsoft is not out to get anybody. This is business practice. This is them enforcing their legal rights with the organization. So nothing is personal. That's one. Because these things just don't go away. They start off with a soft request and might not hear back from Microsoft for even 12 months if you don't do anything. But it come back and ultimately it will escalate because it's an automated process within Microsoft. Automated processes have flags and business logic behind it that that if if no response is received back from the customer within a certain period of time and there's no engagement going on, then there's escalation process. Ultimately, it will get to legal letter from one of Microsoft's legal counsels, or it will be escalated to a hard audit by one of the larger auditing vendors. So things just don't go away. That I always recommend, and we'll talk about how to deal with it in a minute. I'll talk about a bit more detail. So I gave you an overview. Let's get into more detail. I'm talking, and it's already 30 minutes past the hour. Let's get into some interesting stuff. So again, this is a more detailed audit process notification letter that goes out to the CEO. Microsoft license review equals a Microsoft license audit. That's what I told you. Objective is to determine compliance and then afterwards cross-sell, upsell, and request for a single point of contact and request for a meeting. So I did talk about this slightly before. I don't want to take any time on this. The standard audit notification taken from one of our customers for SAM review. And this is basically a soft Microsoft would like to work with your company to review all Microsoft software products in use throughout your organization. This process will be undertaken with the customer over a period of time and is intended to help you control your software assets. Yes, but it's an audit. Okay? It's a very typical standard letter. They have different of this in different languages, in different formats, but they more or less have the same guide. This document, but you can also it. Now, when you get audited, what's Microsoft really looking for? So it's actually an audit, everything to do with any type of license that you purchase. It's your OEM license. It's just licenses that reside on your servers. It's Microsoft looking for your server data. How many processes, how many calls are on machines. Looking to see licenses purchased from retail. Their owned machines running your organization. You've got responsibility for. Does that have access to your internal applications? That's going to be audited as well because you're providing a service. What's happening with your DR service? What's happening with your dev and test environment? Everything's up for an audit. Everything's up to be reviewed. It's not one part of your organization. It's everything. So when you start looking at an audit, you step into the SAM process with open eyes to understand this is a taking. It's a lot of resources from you and from your company in deal with this and to write all the various documents required for SAM audit. Collecting your OEM licenses, collecting open licenses, going through your entitlements from various mergers and acquisitions, running Microsoft's map tool on your dev environment, on your test environment, on your DR environment. You need to categorize everything correctly. Categorize DR as DR, dev as dev, test as test, OEM as OEM. A lot of thought needs to be put into this. Not just, well, great, let's run the to send Microsoft the numbers back without any a distinction between the environments and licenses, because they'll designate everything as a production environment and get built for where there are many other alternatives. So this is what Microsoft is looking for. You understand the overall scope of what you're getting yourself into. And I mentioned that previously, it's all about documents. So you need to prepare a lot of documents. You need to put license statements, go through your MBSA, your enterprise agreement, the various enrollments, open licenses, partner licenses, agreement that you purchased under OEM, under ISV contracts. So if you got a system in that that you purchased from SAP, did you require per SQL Server licenses with that? Did you? Maybe you did, but with the entitlements for those licenses, Microsoft won't have it. So I'd like to say to Microsoft, or to get Microsoft to have all those that you've ever purchased from every single vendor available where they run their reports, the standard stuff you purchased under your volume license, and maybe that isn't even your entire estate because you've got that you acquired over the years that did not designate the licenses or do a transferee of licenses. You have ERP licenses or specific system licenses that you purchased with a third party providing with the Microsoft licenses under an OEM agreement or an ISV agreement. Don't expect Microsoft to have those licenses. It's your responsibility to provide back participating in the audit for your internal requirement and for Microsoft's ability to cross-check and provide you with the gap analysis. So this is about preparing and getting through this audit correctly, getting through the data process, data collection process correctly. So it's not about chucking the letter out and saying, I'm not going to do this. It's about, okay, this situation, I'm going to do it, but on my terms. I'm going to proactively working with Microsoft. I'm going to actively collecting the required data. Proactive. The data. I verify and validate that I'm doing my internal due diligence properly. Microsoft won't do it for you. One, goodwill, showing goodwill. Two, good internal good practice. And ultimately, the better you do, the less paying for licensing gaps. So back 1 second to how the data is actually collected. So you're going to come in with an independent auditor, self-developed scripts. They're going to ask you to run the scripts. That gets into the nitty-gritty server within your organization. These scripts really scrape out all that. And if self-inventory or a SAM, it's Microsoft's map tool or any other third-party map tool is really becoming almost a de facto Microsoft tool to it's an internal Microsoft tool for that acquainted with it. It's developed by Microsoft, knows how to run. It's an agentless tool, runs throughout your organization, collects all data regarding software and hardware, because it's always a of software and of hardware actually makes up your total licensing requirements ultimately. The tool is very simple to deploy. Sometimes it's a bit more difficult to actually get all the data, but it's a bit of a trial and error kind of project. But that would be the go-to tools. So it's a big collection, and either you're going to be analyzing it on you're providing Microsoft with the actual output, or in organizations that just run the map tool, provide Microsoft with the output file, and I don't recommend that because basically giving all of your data away, user data, email addresses, IP addresses, surnames, everything. The map tool collects everything. So I personally don't recommend to just give them the entire data file of map tool, because basically you've just exposed yourself tremendously. They have everything: server names, user names, IP names, you name it, location names. If you can analyze on your side, provide them just with the output, just with actual totals. My recommendation. Self-developed scripts done inventory by an independent auditor, you have that privilege. Their script, and they will take away that data file with information, everything. You basically are, let me put it lightly, you're stripping to the bare bones. So again, you need to be aware of that. You need protocols in place. You need to make sure the data is that the appropriate agreement with the independent auditor, that your data is kept in the auditor's responsibility and not shared with Microsoft, and so on and so on. So you need some legal counsel on this, and you need to take this, be very cautious with data or how you provide data, and what kind of preliminary agreement you have in place with the independent auditor. A little bit more on the map tool. So the map tool is again something that you can actually actively already today. I would recommend you part of best practice prepare for the audit, because as I said, an audit is inevitable. It's if it when. It's not to participate. If it's not about will I participate, it's about I recommend yes you participate. Part of being proactive is use the Microsoft Map tool today as a standard software asset management protocol. If it's a tool, then if you have another SAM tool in place, fantastic. Use it, deploy it, and how it works. See results. Start analyzing it today, creating any kind of risks or gap that you potentially will find. So it's not about just waiting on the fence till it happens and then installing the map tool and basically trying to figure out how it works and what the results are. But do it today, run it today, fix things, do it again in 3 months, run again in 3 months, especially for smaller organizations of 100 to 1,000 or 1,500 users. Definitely something that you can do on an ongoing basis. Large organizations, once every 6 to 12 months, adequate. 12 months is going to be really good if you actually both run through this process internally. So we've actually, I'm moving forward, moving slightly faster. So ultimately, you through the map tool, and you've collected all your entitlements, and you provided everything back to either the auditor or to Microsoft. The end game is a report called Effective License Positioning Document, ELP. Then with it, it's a beautiful sheet with colors, with data behind it, and all kinds of great stuff. But ultimately, this is what you get: a one document that shows you on the left-hand side the product, the vision, what elements are, what's our essay, and then a reconciliation process of basically deployment, mine entitlements, all of Microsoft's product use rights rules for new and old products, and then alter the net licensing, your licensing position. In other words, what your gap is in simple words. You open or under license. This is the end game, and it basically everything happens. Discussions, litigation, legalization actions. Everything happens on top of this effective licensing positioning document. So don't get surprised with you. It can be pretty complex stuff. Again, there are examples on the net. Your resellers can definitely provide you with copies of this. Again, it's about being proactive, planning what's coming, and what kind of process is behind all this data request that's going on by Microsoft. Okay. Let's just talk a bit about, and I touched this when I spoke about providing data back to the auditor. So, if doing an audit, things to consider. Potentiality, I spoke about that. Who's going to be who are results going to be shared with? Who? It's gathered to leave your premise, or does it stay on premise? We have experienced situations where organizations are not even aware that the data was carried off by the auditor. Or somebody in the IT actually ran the Microsoft Map tool and dumped the entire data file service. It needs some management control and overall and approach. And you need to, okay, if I'm going to be running these scripts in the map tool, is there kind of performance impact that's going to happen on my network? Incorrectly, but yes. I mean, a large organization's manufacturing, one of the manufacturing factories shut down because the tool was wrongly run at the wrong time, and a huge amount of data was transferred on bad lines, on very low density lines, and basically crippled the factory for a couple hours. So check out what data is being transferred and what time you're running this. Very, very important. There are some questions to ask the auditor. What data collected? What data being collected? Is the auditor allowed to take the data off premise? Data, who will be seeing the data? What will Microsoft do with the data collected afterwards? Is it going to be there for years and years and years on Microsoft servers? Who has access to it? Security protocols behind it, and ultimately, what's going on with the data at their audit? Now, most organizations don't understand that they need to ask these questions. It's all data, and really sensitive data, and organizations are not always aware of actually what's collected with these scripts, because they collect everything under the sun. So again, it's only a tip of the iceberg. What we talked about, types of audits, how an audit is initiated, what data you're requested to provide back to Microsoft, how to be a bit more proactive and prepare for an audit. Now, usually, as I said, I've never seen a good audit, and complex. And they're complex to litigate. Why are they complex? Because the environment is complex. It's not about one copy of Office installed on a laptop or on a desktop. It's about what you can in front of you that everyone on this line I'm dealing with every single day. It's cloud. It's VI. It's multiple devices. It's BYOD. I love these acronyms coming out here these days. It's just everything under the sun. VDI, saying not the same thing. Citrix, zero. What does it mean for Microsoft? This drives enormous complexity. It's a complexity to actually understand the results of an audit, of how an audit was conducted. It's a lot to do about how the data is interpreted. So, automatic tool that collects the data, goes through some great filters and says, "Well, this is what you owe Microsoft." No, the person behind it, that's the data, that's got training, has a number of years or number of months of experience, and they are received and analyzed it and put right on top of everything. And now, if you don't help them, provide them that insight into that data actually means and what's behind it, the individual that's going to be analyzing the data has got a chance of producing a good audit report. It was benefit. So about understanding this environment and proactively providing more than just the underlying data, but the understanding of how the data is actually used within the organization. I'm going slightly forward now. So we talked complexity and obligation. The bad audit looks like. There is a bad audit. This letter that went by Ernst & Young on Microsoft to the end customer. The customer had only a 27% non-compliant issue, slightly excess of the 5% threshold. And also Microsoft asked them to automatically use the legalization SKUs, the more expensive SKUs that I spoke about previously. And of course, they also asked them to pay for the cost of the audit. It isn't detailed here, but I can tell you this was for over $1 million request back to the customer. This was the settlement letter. Okay. Of course, even settlement letter isn't the last stage. Settlements can be negotiated, and I recommend you to negotiate everything and anything, because audits go from $10 million all the way down to $300,000, and $1 million down to $50,000. And a request to pay for the audit fee have gone away, and so on and so on. So everything, don't get intimidated, but you don't want to reach the situation. This is a bad situation. a audit done badly, wasn't understood by the customer, and at the end of the day, the customer got game notice. This is your OS. This is your status. Now go fight it. Be here. Unpaid the cost of an audit. As I said, there's this 5% threshold. Usually, Microsoft requests the customer to pay it. As I said, most never meet the 5% threshold. But you need to pay for the cost of the audit, usually under a hard audit. A SAM audit or a audit, there's usually no fines. Usually you're not fined. There's no legalization skews, and there's no request to pay the auditor. All bad things happen when there is a on-premise audit. All types of audits are usually more commercial type audits. That's why I always I highly recommend organizations to actively participate in these process of self-audit, SAM audits. Talk to Microsoft, do it at your pace, and not look the other way, because it will turn into a hard audit on-prem by an auditor, and then this is the result, and it's going to be very costly. Some auditing errors that when there are two, but these highlights to tell to you is around user and device scales, incorrectly, wrongly allocated licenses per user because devices were counted and they had no clue how to allocate or to mitigate the number of devices or to take them back to user. Multiple versions of Visio and Project on the same machine that were multiple times. The wrong version installed by the customer, the standard, but a overzealous IT member used a standard image of Project Professional and ran it out to the entire organization. We've just seen a case of a small organization of around 800 users with part of their overall image. When they did Office, they had a copy of Project Pro on it as well. And every single user had Office Project Professional. Who's Project Professional organization? 10 people. Did they ignore compliance issue? Tremendous compliance issue. Okay? And this is something we see day in and day out. That's why I'm be proactive. Don't audit. Equal data back to Microsoft. They don't understand what a inactive user is in Active Directory. They don't understand that they might check login data 6 months for 6 months back. Why 6 months? Because they want to. Why not 30 days? Why not 45, 6 days? When was last time you cleaned up your Active Directory information? I don't know. A year ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, a month ago? You need to understand what data you're providing. You might be providing obsolete data, but they don't know that. They don't understand that. You'll have to explain it after you get the results of a bad audit. The devices, how they counted, how they allocated. That are the information that you need to provide back. Wrongs and interpretation of SQL Server licensing. You might have multiple tricks within entitlements. You might have server licenses and KLs. You might have processors. You might have calls. I don't know. That's it for SQL Server. Are they being interpreted correctly? Individual that's analyzing the information has the experience and how to analyze your very complex environment of SQL Server. You don't. So you need to manage it. It's called entitlements. Not only about what you have under your EA, it's what you put 6 years ago and 9 years ago, because you still might be using Windows 2003. Just went through a internal audit with a company, that's a big bank, that around 200 workstations with SQL Server 2000 installed in it full server, full enterprise version that never had a clue that they were actually there, and it was an enormous gap because nobody's patched those in like 10, and nobody where the licenses were supposed to come from. Only we went back like 10 years to find licenses. We actually found corresponding licenses for those 200 machines. But if you won't do that, so again, entitlements are really important, and licenses from mergers and acquisitions. And I know the time is out. Quick summary. I always copy this away. Misinterpret a SAM review as a SAM review. It's audit. Be proactive. Use the map tool on an ongoing basis, and about details. Provide information about your license status. The slides here about internal preparedness for the audit. So as I said, share it with management. Don't keep it to yourself. Have internal governance and communications and an escalation model in place. Build up a team of people that are going to be dealing with this. Have a steering committee if you're a big company and essentially there's going to be a bad audit. So everybody up to speed. And internal communication. Don't dare leak out to Microsoft or to the auditor. Keep everything really, really tight. Okay, so I ran through the last couple of slides. I apologize. Additional reading on our website. Now I'm going to open the session up for just give 1 second. I always get myself in a mess with the technical side of WebEx. Okay, so we've got some questions here already. Let me start. First question is, should I have an NDA signed with her? Yes, absolutely. Have an NDA in place with the auditor prior to the engagement or part of the audit. The 5% threshold, does each license has the same weight? So the 5% threshold is overall, not per product. There's no weighting. There's no different between the various products. So SQL Server is the same as a Windows scale. It's all about overall total number of licenses that you have compared to the total number of licenses or the total number of your license gap. It's the percentage. A very, very simple mechanism. Let's see. Is there a quick way to estimate user count on SQL Server or on SharePoint? There's no quick way, especially not for SQL Server. SQL Server is a complex product. So in order to determine the number of CALs required, for example, for SQL, you basically run a query on the application that's sitting on SQL, and you need to monitor the number of actual users or devices accessing that application. The only way really to understand how many CALs for SQL are required. SharePoint, the Microsoft Map tool, have a module that monitors the number of SharePoint CAL access. So there's a report in the Map tool specifically for SharePoint Standard CAL and for SharePoint Enterprise CAL. What future of audits with cloud migration? We pay what we use. So, well, the audit is when the vendor has all the information. Simply, the more you move your estate to the cloud, there's going to be less requirement for audit because utility-based, you come in the morning, you switch on the light, and you'll start to run. It's exactly the same with cloud-based licensing. You've seen utility holding on to the licenses, they're securing it, and they send you the bill. So there's no audit, it's usage. But you come in the morning, you switch on the light. It's like at home. I'm sure you on the line have kids. you come home in the evening, your house lit up like a Christmas tree. Every single room's got the lights on. Why? Because somebody visited a room, nobody switches off the light. Damn well you are. You are paying for every single light on. You switch it off, it's probably you're going to go back and switch it off, not your kids. It's exactly the same with licenses. Somebody switched it on, and you're going to pay for it. So pros and cons regarding a lot of pros and cons regarding licensing and how you actually pay for it. So no audits, but you're paying for everything, even if you're not using it, even if you think you're not using it. Okay, 2 last questions, or like 3 different questions. Yeah, definitely. One will be putting the webinars being recorded. We'll have it on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. So a couple of days, we'll upload it onto our, and you can review it from there. Anybody wants a offline copy, then let me to the beginning of my presentation, and you can see my email. Please send me an email directly, and I'll send it to you directly, or one of my member of my staff will be happy to provide you with a copy. So we actually 1 minute after the hour. Everybody that started off with me an hour ago actually and stayed with me all the way to the end. So first of all, thank you much. It's always a pleasure when the participants don't drop you in the middle and go get coffee or do at least what I'm hoping that you did do. So again, email line darren@darren.com. If you have follow-up questions, if you want a presentation, I'm happy to provide it back to you. And again, thank you today, everybody. See you on our next webinar. If I'm not mistaken, it's next week or in a couple of weeks. It's on our website. So please us at www.emerson.com. And that's it. Have a good evening. Thank you.